Yitz, what does Eretz Yisrael have to do with it?
To do with what?
So this week, Parsha Tazria Mezorah, the two Parshas mainly deal with physical situations, with spiritual implications, and within those two Parshas, Tazria Mezorah, there's this whole concept of Tzara'at, and within Tzara'at, there's the concept of Tzara'at Habayt, the Tzara'at that comes on the house. When you take a look in the Psukim themselves, a very interesting pasuk stands out. The way Tzara'at Habayt starts, the way the Torah starts to tell us about Tzara'at Habayt, it begins with Ki tavo el Eretz Canaan v'natati. The day you will come to the land of Canaan, to the land that you will inherit, to your land, I will give you. And usually when the Torah starts with a pasuk like that, you know something good is going to come out of it. You know a good prophecy is going to follow that pasuk. But looking at the psukim itself, what does the Torah say? What is the HaKadosh Baruch Hu going to give us? He's going to give us Tzara'at Habayt. He's going to give us the Tzara'at on the house that's going to end up forcing the people of Am Yisrael who get it to destroy the house, to take it apart because of the Tzara'at. What kind of statement is this? Why is the Torah using this usually positive statement to start the concept of Tzara'at Habayt? And even more so, Rashi and many of the Rishonim and Farshim had this question in mind. Rashi says there is a positive Bsorah here. There is a positive news here to Am Yisrael, because actually the nations that lived in the land of Israel beforehand, they hid treasure and gold in the walls and in the houses. And the fact that Am Yisrael will have to destroy those houses will help them find and reveal the gold in those treasures, which again is very nice, but it's only relevant for that first generation who got there in those first years. And as we know, the Torah was not only written for that first generation, it was written for all of us for generations. So why is the Torah beginning with that pasuk in the beginning of Tzara'at Habayt?
Very interesting. And actually, Tzara'at Habayt in general is a very strange tzara'at. I mean, we understand that tzara'at is coming from some sort of spiritual reason. There's something wrong spiritually, which is influencing your body. And that sort of makes sense. We understand if you have something wrong spiritually, it may influence your physical side. You know what? Even the clothes, those are the things that are almost like your body. You walk around with them all the time. So if your soul has a disease, so does your body, and so maybe does your clothes. But your house? What does your house have to do with anything? Like, why would your house suddenly have tzara'at? How is that really connected to the idea of tzara'at coming from a spiritual source inside of you? And maybe this question is exactly the answer, because what the Torah is saying is, you're right. If the house was just a place that you lived in, then there would be no connection. You know, you are you. Your house is just a place you happen to be in. Your spiritual disease would definitely not influence your house. But if your connection to your house, to your home, is much deeper than that, and that's exactly what the pasuk is saying, as opposed to everywhere else in the world where you may live in a home, but there is no deep spiritual connection between you and that home, that's not true in Eretz Yisrael. And what the Torah says is, this is good news. This is a blessing. As the pasuk says, Ki tavo el Eretz, when you come to the land that I will give to you, le'achuzah. Achuzah comes from the word achiza, when you hold on to something. This won't just be another place. This is something that you'll be deeply tied and connected to. This is not just any home. This is your true, real home. And because of that deep connection, your spiritual diseases will influence not only your body and your clothes, but also your home as well. And this goes back to an idea we spoke about back in Vezot HaBracha, about Moshe breaking the luchot. We explained that ownership of something is seen more by your ability to break it versus your ability to do good to it. You know, if you walk into a home and you see someone cleaning it, you don't know if it's their home. But if you walk into that same home and you see someone breaking the walls, taking it down, changing things around, ruining the home, you know that it must be their home. And therefore, that connection to Eretz Yisrael, that connection that you're going to have is expressed. It is a blessing. And it's expressed through Tzara'at Habayt. Even though Tzara'at Habayt may not be a good thing, but the overall picture of what it shows about your connection to Eretz Yisrael is a positive thing. And coming to today, to Yom Ha'atzmaut, you know, sometimes people like complaining and saying, well, we are celebrating the state, but look how many troubles we have, look how many problems we have, look how many things aren't the way they should be. And sometimes the answer to that is, okay, but you should look at the good things. There's more good than bad. Focus on the good. But actually what the Torah is teaching us here is you're missing the point. Even those bad things you're complaining about, they're part of the blessing. That's something that could only happen in your own home. Because we have a home, our diseases, our problems also influence that home. Our problems are the dreams of generations before. They would dream to have these types of problems. This isn't a curse. Even those troubles are part of the blessing. And when we appreciate that on Yom Ha'atzmaut, we're not only saying, okay, there are some great good things we should focus on, and you know what, there are some problems. No, we're saying this whole reality we live in is an entire miracle with the good and the bad, with all of that complexity. It's a dream come true. And hopefully we're able to improve that and not need the Tzara'at Habayt and be able to build a beautiful home. But the reality itself we live in is from start to finish just a great, wonderful blessing.
Amen, exactly. And it's really one of those things that sometimes we forget that it's part of what we call growing pains. In order to grow, you have to go sometimes through a painful stage or through some uncomfortableness, some kind of pain. And talking about growing pains and talking about the returning to Eretz Yisrael, it's hard not to mention the famous allegory from the Rihal in Sefer HaKuzari, what we call Mashal HaKerem, the allegory of the vineyard, where he describes Am Yisrael need to live and to grow in Eretz Yisrael, just like grapes in a vineyard can grow better and can grow the best way in certain areas, in certain climates. That is required in order to produce the best grapes and then produce the best wine. Same thing with Am Yisrael. In order to produce the best life, the best outcome, the best light to the world, we have to live in our land. We have to live on our soil where we can grow the best way and where we can fulfill our potential and what we have to bring into this world. And as the Mashal says, and as you were mentioning also, living in Eretz Yisrael is not just stop living, it's not just being here. It's an actual spiritual connection, but it's more than that spiritual connection. As Rav Kook famously says, Eretz Yisrael inena kinyan chitzoni la'uma. Eretz Yisrael is not something we acquire on the outside in order to come here and build a nation and a place where we can assemble together. That's not what Eretz Yisrael is about. Eretz Yisrael is a lot more than that. It's also not just on a spiritual level where it's a place where we can walk around and think about things and have the right thoughts. Eretz Yisrael is intrinsically connected to us being the Jewish people, to us being Am Yisrael. And without it, Am Yisrael as a public, as a general, wherever it is around the world, cannot fulfill its full potential, cannot fulfill what it has to bring into this world. And again, like you were saying, Yom Ha'atzmaut is today. Let's not forget, Eretz Yisrael is needed not only for the spirituality of things, not only for the technical level of things where we can assemble as a nation, and even not only for the mitzvahs that you can only keep in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is a lot more than that. Eretz Yisrael is needed because that's who we are as the Jewish people. Eretz Yisrael is part of us, and we are part of Eretz Yisrael. And together, that's how the Jewish nation as a total can fulfill its most potential in this world.
You mentioned Rav Kook. He actually has another story that describes exactly this idea. He talks about people going and digging to find a well, and they're digging and trying, and they don't find it. And a lot of people, they give up, and others say, no, we're going to keep digging, and they dig even further and further. And again, some of the people are slowly giving up and leaving. But there's one group that just keeps going, and they finally find water. But when they find the water is dirty. It's not water you could drink. And at that point, almost everyone gives up, because finally they have water, but it's not even good water, so it's pointless. But the ones who stick to it realize that even though the water now may not be water they could drink, but it's water. It means they're almost there. And they stick to it and keep digging and finally get to the water that they were looking for. They weren't scared off by the imperfect water, because they understood that water is water. And if they found the water, it means they're almost there. Even when things aren't perfect, even when we have what to complain about, it doesn't mean that our reality isn't a blessing. It's a wonderful blessing. And even those bad things, as we said, are part of it. And it just means that we have to keep pushing and keep digging until we achieve a Geulah Shlema b'meira b'yameinu.
Amen. Wonderful. And again, like you were saying, we have to be thankful for the problems and the fact that we can complain and the fact that we have what to complain about.
Shkoyach, Chag Hatzmaut Sameach, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shkoyach to you, Chag Hatzmaut Sameach, to all of Am Yisrael, and good Shabbos. We'll talk again next week. For more Talking Torah videos on different topics, check out our YouTube channel.